Hi, everybody. So today I'm going to talk a little bit about ChatPDF, not ChatGPT, but ChatPDF. It's a interface that allows you to upload a PDF document, and you can chat with the document as opposed to chat with GPT. So it's using the large language model or the generative AI to examine a unique or closed document. So I'll share my screen and I'll show you what it is. So here you can see Chat PDF. The address is called chatpdf.com. And it's basically an interface or an API with ChatGPT. So what you would do is you would get a PDF. So here it says drop PDF here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to select Plato's Republic, which is a document or a book that many people know about. So it's going to process that. It's going to analyze it. So it says, okay, greetings. I am the PDF file of The Republic by Plato, translated by Benjamin Jowett. This is just a document that I got from Gutenberg Library. So it is a public domain. This masterpiece was written in 360 BCE and is a philosophical work that explores the nature of justice, the ideal society, and the human soul. In the first book, Socrates and Glaucon visit the Piraeus to offer prayers to the goddess and witness the festival. They meet Polemarchus, sorry, I'll make that larger, who invites them to his home where they engage in a discussion about justice. Here are 3 example questions you can ask about this PDF. So you can see the idea of the format or the framework of ChatPDF. It's allowing you to basically query or question or interact with the PDF alone. So it's sandboxed as just the PDF. It's not interacting it, or the program is written so it's not interacting just with everything that Plato was written, but it's interacting with this specific PDF. Although if you do continue to ask it more questions, it can look to other things that it has been trained on, the data set that has been trained on. So let's ask it a question. It says, for example, we could ask it who is Socrates, what's the main theme? So let's ask the first one. What is the key idea of this text? I'll just say that. And then it's thinking. Okay, so it actually was a bit slow, so I paused the recording. I've started again. So it says, it comes back, the key idea of the Republic by Plato is to explore the nature of justice, the ideal society, and the human soul. Through a series of dialogues between Socrates and various interlocutors, Plato examines different definitions of justice and argues, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so I can say, who is he talking to? Was this a question? So it says in the excerpt from page 14, Socrates is talking to Tharamachus, who's one of the interlocutors in the Republic. Tharamachus is a sophist and a skeptic who challenges Socrates' definition of justice, blah, 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 blah. Okay, yeah, okay. Well, let's ask it, what is his theory of justice? Socrates' theory of justice is based on the idea that justice is a virtue and that is necessary for human flourishing. In Socrates, he argues that so on and so forth. So you can understand here, what are the key issues discussed here? Explain step by step. And then it excerpts something and it talks about this, the program is telling me about this conversation between Glaucon and Socrates, and it starts listing the key issues discussed, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then it ends with a summary or conclusion overall this passage. So you can understand that, I think, this is a very powerful way to, I think, for purposes of study or research or academic scholarship, for both, I guess, undergraduates and graduate students and instructors or professors themselves. It's a powerful tool in the sense that you can use it as a way of, if you will, engaging with a text or challenging a text or asking GPT through this program called ChatPDF. You can ask questions of the specific text. So that's quite different than ChatGPT, which doesn't allow you to zero in on a particular document. So this is, I think, quite powerful. It certainly allows you to expand, say, some ideas that you might have about the text or that you're interested in examining, or having a, if you will, more kind of interactive dialogue with the text, right? And it can also, allow you, or it can help tell you what further research you could look at. So for instance, I can say, what are other ideas about justice that borrow from Plato, Socrates? Okay, so it says there are several ideas about justice that borrow from Plato and Socrates. That justice is virtue, the concept of this just society, the importance of the idea of the tripartite soul, full of education. Yeah, those are good. Okay, can you suggest some references or citations? This is important. Sure, here's some references and citations you might find. Okay. Okay, yeah. Philosopher King. Okay, all right. So here's some things that it's saying might be of interest to a student of the Republic. Okay. So that's a very old ancient text. What if we looked at a more recent or contemporary text, or text that might not be as linear, like as Socrates' conversations recorded in the Republic? Last night I looked at a document called Postmodernism or the Logic of Late Capitalism. That's a, if you will, a Marxist critique of modernity, written by Frederick Jameson, very famous in the 80s. And certainly it spurred or helped add to the debate around postmodernity and postmodernism. And it's probably one of the most well-read articles in the area of, say, critical theory or postmodernism, and if you will, literature, I guess, in general, or theories about literature, literary theory. So here it says, and the reason I picked it is it's an article that I know, but also it's not very linear, right? It's not necessarily a straightforward argument, and there are many nuances to the argument. And it's also an argument, it's also a text that I'm hoping that many viewers would be familiar with. So here you go. Here it says, hello there, I'm a PDF file discussing the concept of postmodernism and the radical break occurred in the 1950s, early 60s. This break is often related to the decline or rejection of the modern movement in various fields such as painting, philosophy, literature, and film. And let me pause there for a second. So another reason that I picked it is because I think also this conversation that I have, and I'll show you just the sort of 5, maybe 6 questions that I asked. I think it shows a lot of nuance, and it shows a lot of use value in terms of using it to keep probing and to keep asking questions for clarification, right? On something that's not linear, that's something that's actually quite nuanced. So I was quite impressed. That's why I'm showing you this. I was quite impressed by the answers by ChatPDF, which is the API framework accessing ChatGPT. Here are some example questions. It says, what are some examples of the end of ideology? How does the concept of postmodernism relate to the idea of radical break? Blah, blah, blah. Okay. So I just say, I start with a very simple question or query. I say, what's the main arguments, right? Presented by Fred Jameson. Please present the argument in 5 parts. So it does. It says, 1, the last few years have been marked by an inverted millenarianism, where premonitions of the future have been replaced by senses of the end of various things. This phenomenon is increasingly called postmodernism. This break relates to this notion of a decline or rejection of the modern movement. Postmodernism is characterized by a depthlessness, and it's also related to this new global capital. So I keyed in on this idea of things with no depth. So I asked the question, does he mean that the postmodern moment is more shallow or vacuous than the modern one that predates it? So I'm asking it, I think, a nuanced question. And it says, yes, Jameson argues that postmodernism is characterized by a new kind of depthlessness and surface level pastiche that reflects the cultural logic of late capitalism. He suggests that this new kind of flatness or superficiality is perhaps the supreme formal feature of all the postmodernisms. And the answer goes on. So then I say, but how is this shift or change in capitalism given rise to postmodernism? Why the absence of depth? So I think I'm asking it. I'm trying to push it, right? And then it responds, Jameson argues that the shift towards postmodernism and the emergence of depthlessness is a reflection of the cultural logic of the capitalists. Okay, so it brings the main thesis of the text. According to Jameson, this new kind of global capitalism has transformed all aspects of social life, including culture and art, so on and so forth. Yeah, that's good. Okay. So then I go, so postmodern artists understand this despair or endgame and thus create art that has no depth, or as a reply or critique of this new moment created by capitalism? So I'm asking it, I think it's a synthetic question. And also it would be a question, I'm trying to understand it also. I'm trying to use it to simulate a kind of intellectual exchange, right? Like an intellectual exchange with something that's not a person. So that is weird, right? I'm having an intellectual exchange with a document, right? But the program is able to turn it into a chat, right? So it is a very interesting process of intellectual engagement, but I'm not engaging with anyone. The interlocutor is a large language model, right? So it's interesting. Anyways, so Jameson argues that postmodern artists are not necessarily consciously responding to the cultural logic of the capitalism or creating art that has no depth as critique of this new moment. Rather, he suggests that the emergence of postmodernism is a symptom of the broader cultural and economic changes that have taken place under late capitalism. Okay, so I think, I'll pause here for a second. I also think that it is a very good reading of the article. So I think part of our testing of this is to ask, is it hallucinating these things? Is it making up things that aren't present in the text? And I would say no. I think this is a very close reading of the article. And then I'll just say here. So you're saying that Jameson thinks postmodern art tends to borrow from popular culture, but it borrows from it without consciously knowing what they're doing? Does that mean that postmodern artists are automatons? So I'm really trying to push it, right? And it's a great answer. It says, no, Jameson does not suggest that postmodern artists are automatons or that they borrow from popular culture without consciously knowing what they're doing. Rather, he argues that postmodern art reflects the broader cultural and economic changes. So I'll stop there. So, and yeah, I'll stop there and I'll unshare. So I think what is happening there is that it is very nuanced, I believe. I think the answers are not linear or aren't canned. There's a certain, if you will, aliveness to that interaction. And you can basically ask it any type of question. You can ask it questions for clarification, but you can also ask it to present counter arguments. Later on in that text, I won't show you now, I ask it to suggest other readings, and it does. And other, if you will, cultural critics that criticize or critique Jameson's writing, and it presents those. So I think it's quite powerful as a teaching tool or as a tutor, or as just in the absence of an interlocutor, in the absence of having someone to talk to about an article or about a text of any kind, whether it be the Plato's Republic or Jameson's article about postmodernism. it does allow you to engage with it in this very, I'm hesitant to say, in this very human way, right? As if you were chatting with somebody. But it is also very interested in being true to the document. So it is also, it is a very useful pedagogic tool in that sense, right? I think in that sense, I think it's trustworthy. That's what I wanted to get at, in the sense that it's able to contain its hallucinations. I don't think it's, in this engagement, I don't think it's hallucinated anything. And it's able to stick to the thread, right? It's actually able to stick to my thread. Often what happens in ChatGPT, it goes off on a thread, right? It loses its thread. But in this program, ChatPDF, I think it's able to contain itself to the document. And when you ask those questions, depending on, I guess it's really, we should really applaud the person who wrote this API, this program. Whatever they've done, it's able to contain, if you will, your queries to the document. Well, I'll just share one more thing. There is also another, you can use this program, which is called, a chat a PDF, and I'll just close that. There it is, which allows you to chat with any PDF. There's also if you will, another program called PDF GPT, which is a similar program. I've not had that much success with it. It's a bit different, but it's a similar idea that you're chatting with a specific document. And one more thing. Oh yeah, I've actually buried my lead in a way. The best for last. Here, when I asked it, can you list the 5 main arguments? The first argument is, it said, the last few years have been marked by inverted millenarianism, where premonitions of the future have been replaced by senses of the end of various things. And I have to say thanks to my brother-in-law, who pointed out that in fact this is plagiarized. This comes from this article by K.M. Newton called Frederick Jameson, Postmodernism or the Cultural Logic of Late Capitalism. It's a chapter in this guide called 20th Century Literary Theory. And here I will just go right here. It's exactly right. It's right in the first paragraph. The last few years have been marked by an inverted millenarianism in which premonitions of the future. Okay, that's what it's copied. That first clause in that sentence. It doesn't copy catastrophic or redemptive, but then it does copy have been replaced by senses of the end of this or that. Right? It's a bit different, but so if we go back to that, it says the last few years have been marked by an inverted millenarianism, where premonitions of the future have been replaced by senses of the end of various things. So in a way, it is this, but it has done what it's able to do, which is, as a blender, as this kind of program, this large language model, it's able to take parts of this and blend it with other things. And that's the question. So if indeed the first thing that it tells me is in fact directly copied from an uncited source, what does this mean, again, for its use value in terms of research? Because it's uncited, right? It's a form of plagiarism. It's actually saying it invented this sentence, when in fact it's almost verbatim copied that sentence, but not cited the original author. So that's a problem for, I think, research. But I think from the point of view of it being an engaged interlocutor, and it being, say, an engaged tutor or an executive assistant, whatever you want to call it, it is actually helping you get into the material of the text, right? It is actually helping you study. It's a form of studium, right? It is very useful in that sense. And I can see its uses in the classroom. I can see its uses for undergraduate and graduate students and researchers alike, right, in that sense. So ChatPDF a powerful interface with ChatGPT, and has really lots of academic applications, which I think we've just scratched the surface in this brief video. Thanks for watching. Take care.